Joel 2. Now we covered verse 12 and 13, but we'll start there for context and get to our new verse, verse 14. Joel 2, verse 12. Therefore also now, saith the Lord, return ye unto me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning. And rend your heart and not your garments, and turn unto the Lord your God. For he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. Our new verse, verse 14. Who knoweth if he will return and repent, and leave a blessing behind him, even a meat offering and a drink offering unto the Lord your God. So what he's saying here is there's been a drought, there's been some sort of crop failure, and things have been dried up, so they couldn't bring any offerings. And so he said back in verse 12 of chapter 1, the vine is dried up, the fig tree languisheth. You remember all that? So there wasn't anything they could bring for an offering. So he's saying maybe after God's done destroying everything, he'll drop us some good stuff that we can take to the temple to offer. That'd be nice. Now, that's practical. Now I'm going to run to doctrinal, and it's going to get heavy. He says, verse 14, the first phrase, who knoweth if he will return? Well, we know he's going to return, but he also returns in the tribulation. He'll be there twice. So we're going to cover all of these big, heavy theological terms and put them, I believe, where they belong. There are people who hold fast to one position or another. They'll be, they believe in a pre-trib rapture, a mid-trib rapture, or a post-trib rapture. I think all three are correct. You have to get them in the right order. There's amillennial, post-millennial, all of that stuff. We'll cover it all in detail and get the Bible on it. Revelation. The first thing we'll notice is there's an unknown hour that Christ comes. And when he talks about this stuff, he's not talking about our rapture. We know that's unknown. But what he's referring to here in Revelation has nothing to do with the church age. Nothing in the book of Revelation is church age. Nothing. You'll find people who put it in the church age. The first 4 chapters are not church age. I know for years and years, and the way I was taught was it pictures. Okay, well, you can get pictures out of anything. But the fact is, if you go through Revelation chapter 1 to 3, they have to do works for salvation and to keep their salvation. That's not church age. That's something in the tribulation. Revelation 4, verse 1. This is, of course, John the Baptist and nobody else. Nobody goes up with him. Revelation 4:1. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. Now that's the way a rapture does happen. He says, Come up hither. Now, it's not a rapture because he's the only one that leaves. And he's already in the Spirit. He's already not on earth. But this is a good picture. He shows us some details here. Look back at chapter 1, verse 10. Chapter 1, verse 10. Here's the context of this supposed rapture. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet. Now, we've been through it so many times that you recognize the word the Lord's day. It doesn't mean Sunday. It means the second advent. That's how you date the book. The present tense of the book of Revelation is the advent. Things past are the tribulation, the 7 years. Things future are millennium and eternity. No church age in it anywhere. Look at verse 19, 1:19. Write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. So that's your past, present, and future based on the Lord's day, the second advent. Now you get into trouble when you start monkeying around with the word the Lord's day. It means a single day. That's Armageddon, the advent, the day he comes back and physically claims this earth. Look at another interesting thing. Chapter 2, verse 10. Chapter 2, verse 10. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. 10 days. So they get 10 days of tribulation, as though they only have 10 days. I think what he's referring to here is on our chart. It's going to go 10 days into the Great Tribulation, is what he's referring to. I believe the churches are beginning at the beginning of the tribulation. And they're going to go another 10 days into the Great Tribulation and then be raptured out. And we'll continue on. Chapter 3, verse 3. Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. Okay, so somebody's not aware of the 10 days. But here's the thing. This is still an unknown thing. He's given them peace of mind by telling them 10 days, but I doubt anybody knows when day 1 started. So they're going to have trouble trying to calculate something. Now, after they leave, it'll be easy to calculate, and I'll show that to you in a minute. Chapter 16, verse 15.
Who is the they? All the Jews? Or
Well, anybody in the tribulation.
anybody?
Anybody trying to calculate
Okay.
when he's coming.
Okay.
So if you were in the tribulation, I believe the churches are both Jew and Gentile. And I mean, it's when Paul's writing here, he's not writing to Jews. That's Asia Minor. Those are Gentile. So, you know, that's not necessarily a Jewish thing there yet. Look at chapter 16, verse 15. He says, behold, this is Jesus talking, behold, I come as a thief in the night. Or as a thief. I'm adding words to it. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. So somebody's supposed to be watching because he's going to show up secretly, and they're not going to know. And so we're told there's an unknown appearing, and in a minute we're going to be told there is a known one. Find it again, Matthew chapter 24. Matthew 24, verse 43. Matthew 24, 43. But know this, okay, let's know it, that if the goodman of the house had known in what hour, in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Well, we understand that. What he's saying here is when a thief shows up, he's not on a schedule, or he's on a schedule that you don't know about. And he's talking about himself coming as a thief. He says the same thing. I'm not going to read it to you almost word for word in Luke 12, 39 to 40. Look at Matthew 26, Matthew 26, 55. Matthew 26, 55. I think we mentioned this last week. It says, in the same hour said Jesus unto the multitudes, are you come out as against a thief with swords and staves for to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temple, and you laid no hand on me. And he says the same thing in Luke 22, 52. So early on, you start seeing Jesus using this thief comment about himself, and then it shows up in Revelation as a description of how he shows up. Revelation 6, verse 9. Revelation 6, verse 9. It says, and when I had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God, and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also, and their brethren, that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. Okay, so they're waiting here for something to take place. They have other folks that are going to join them under the altar. Now this shows you a difference in this dispensation and ours. When we die, we show up in heaven or hell immediately. When these die, they are in a holding position. This is what is it the Church of Christ teach? Who is it that teaches soul sleep? I think it's Church of Christ. Jehovah's Witness? Soul sleep. Well, here it is right here in the Bible, but it's not for our dispensation. They're under the altar, and they have to wait there until a specific time. These are trib saints, and they're under the altar. The Old Testament saints did something similar. They went to Abraham's bosom. They had a place they were held until Jesus made the payment, and then he took them out. Well, things are going to reverse again in the tribulation. Revelation 7, look at verse 9. Revelation 7, verse 9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations, kindred, and people, and tongue, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, and palms in their hands. Okay, so obviously the souls under the altar have now been raptured, because they're in heaven at this point. So something happened. I say there's a mid-trib rapture. I put it right here, and you can boggle your mind trying to work through this thing. I did it for months. I went through trying to figure this thing out. I say they go up right here, the mid-trib rapture right here, just the other side of the Great Tribulation. Now, when we say mid, we don't mean exactly 3.5 years. So these people are in heaven now, but I'll tell you who is not there. The 144,000 are not there. Okay, the 144,000, I say, are the... oh, wow, just stay down. I say what happens is this. The tribulation starts 6.5 days after the beginning of the tribulation. The two witnesses show up. The reason it has to be 6.5 days is because they lie in the street dead for 3.5 days. Then they're resurrected. I think they all go out at the same time, right here. Now, it's not the 144,000. The 144,000, I believe, are their converts. And I'll say they come in here, and I'll show you that to you in a minute. This is heavy stuff, I told you. Revelation 7. No, I told you wrong. That's a good one. You can put your finger there. We'll be there in a minute. Go to Matthew 25. Matthew 25, verse 10. Okay, what is this chapter about? Anybody know off the top of your head? Matthew 25, that's the 10 virgins. 5 are wise and 5 are foolish. They do different things. Matthew 25, verse 10. And while they went to buy, that is, the foolish ones went out to buy more oil, the bridegroom came. And they that were ready went in to with him, this is important, to the marriage, and the door was shut. So, I say for 3.5 years, we've had the judgment seat of Christ in heaven. At the end of the 3.5 years, we have our marriage in heaven, the marriage supper. And so this is the ones that get to go in with him to the marriage. They're not being married. He only marries one chaste virgin, not 5.
The friends of the bridegroom?
These are friends of the bridegroom, correct. Now go back to Revelation 7, verse 4. Revelation 7, 4. Here's this 144,000. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Now it turns real Jewish. From here on out, the book is heavy influence on Jewish. So we're verse 4, 144,000. Verse 9, there's people in heaven, but it ain't the 144,000. They just got sealed. So they've still got to do their ministry. Look at verse 13. Revelation 7:13. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? Well, they were stuck under the altar, and they jumped out. Verse 14. And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest, I got no clue. And he said unto me, These are they which came out of great tribulation. So the mid-trib can't be before the great tribulation. I say it has to be after, and I've given you the numbers on how it just barely makes it over into the great tribulation. He says clearly, great tribulation. And have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. Okay, so this group comes out of the great tribulation, and they probably get raptured out with the two witnesses, I say. The two witnesses, we know, prophesy for 3.5 years. Now, that, I'll just show it to you in the Bible. Revelation 11:3. Revelation 11:3. And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. Now, that's how many days? That's 3.5 years. You can do the math. It's a 30-day month because they're on a Jewish calendar now. So, notice what he said. He didn't say they would be around for 3.5 years. He says they'll prophesy. That's how long their mouth is moving, prophesying. What happens after they quit prophesying? They quit prophesying because somebody chops their head off. Okay? So then you can't prophesy. But guess what? They're laying there for 3.5 days, and then they pop back up. Doesn't say they say a word. They just leave. Everybody freaks out. Look at Revelation 11:11. After 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entereth into them, and they stood upon their feet. And great fear fell on them which saw them. I guess so. So there you can mark that. You can go home and work on all this. I'm not going to say anybody's a heretic for taking a different viewpoint on this than me. And it took me many, many years to come to the one I have. And I'm not necessarily married to it. If somebody can show me something I'm doing wrong, I'll change it. So, I mean, this is tough stuff. That church in Revelation 2:10 has been told 10 days of tribulation. These witnesses here, I believe, started with the tribulation at the beginning and went 3.5 years prophesying, died for 3.5 days, and then they're all leaving at the same time. Okay, that's the mid-tribulation rapture, as I see it. There's also a post. There's also, by post, I don't mean after. It's just the terminology people use, so I'm using the same terminology. I mean there is another one. Now this one I'm not real sure about. There's 144,000 still on the earth. The reason I say there is a post is because we know these are leaving before. They don't endure to the end. They leave. They get raptured out. If somebody else goes with them, maybe, maybe not. I don't. Y'all figure it out. This will be okay. Luke 12. Luke 12, verse 36. Luke 12, verse 36. And ye yourselves, like unto men, not women, that wait for their Lord, when he will return from the wedding. Okay, what we saw earlier was 5 virgins that didn't get to go, and the wise ones got to go to the wedding. These right here are talking about men that are waiting for the groom to come back from the wedding. Okay, so that's obviously after. That when he cometh and knocketh, that they may open unto him immediately. Look at it in Malachi 4. Malachi 4, verse 2. Malachi 4:2, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and you shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. Okay, so that's going to be the millennium, going forth and turning into a cow. No, a lot of people who've already started. Hebrew, the cross-reference for that, the cross-reference for this nobody gives you correctly. I don't know why. Here's the cross-reference. Hebrews 9, verse 28. Hebrews 9, 28. So Christ was once offered to bear the sins of many, and unto them that look for him shall he appear the second time without sin unto salvation. Now, I understand because of the first half of that verse, they say first coming as a baby versus second time, second advent. You're in the book of Hebrews. There's no Christians in the book of Hebrews. I know that's going to blow everybody's gaskets too. Hebrews is written to Jews, Hebrews. And if you go through Hebrews, it's not church age doctrine. All the if statements that are connected to your salvation. And we don't have any ifs connected to ours. So I say the second time is there's coming a second. He did appear once here to take them out. And he's going to come back a second time for those who are looking. And we'll see somebody looking in a minute. Revelation 14. Revelation 14:1. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having the Father's name written in their foreheads. So here's the 144,000, verse 2. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their strings. And they sang, and they sung, I would say sung. They sung, as it were, a new song before the throne. Okay, so that's in heaven. And before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were, past tense, not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. First fruits is always a reference to a rapture. You find it again in 1 Corinthians 15. So now the 144,000 are in heaven, and that's going to be just before the fall of Babylon. Look at it in verse 8, Revelation 14:8. I know it. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So, these 144,000 are not under the altar, so they must have been raptured out. They're in heaven. It could be that these are the only ones that go, but I don't think so, but maybe I'll leave that up to a possibility. I think there's others that are looking, and he'll show up the second time, and they get to go out. Revelation 7, verse 9. Here's something that is not said when we saw the 144,000 in heaven. There's something a little different than when we saw the last group in heaven. Revelation 7:9. This was the mid-trib. And after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations. When it talked about the 144,000, it didn't tell us about all nations, and kindreds, and people, and tongues. So maybe it's just the 144,000. They're from one nation, and they got one tongue. Maybe. Y'all figure it out. All right, now let's see what else the Bible has to say. James chapter 5. James 5, verse 11. We've got some Old Testament pictures according to God telling us these are pictures. Not us making it up or eating bad pizza and dreaming these are pictures. That can happen. You got to be careful with making pictures out of stuff. You got to make sure the doctrine is there first and strongly stated before you make a picture out of something. Hopefully I'm not doing that. Y'all judge. James 5, verse 11. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Lord. Wouldn't it say the end of Job? No, the end of the Lord. That the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. You wouldn't feel that way if you were in the tribulation, in the great tribulation. And somebody's going to endure to the end and recognize exactly what it said in the verse. They'll see the end of the Lord, and they'll recognize it as being merciful and pitiful on them because they made it through. Another example he gives us is in verse 17, James 5:17. James is another book that's not written to Christians. James tells you right from the beginning, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. I'm not a tribe. James 5:17. Elias, that's Elijah, was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain. And it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. Now I think that's very interesting, because never in the Old Testament, if I'm wrong, y'all find it. I can't find it. Never in the Old Testament does it tell you 3 years and 6 months. It just says 3 years. Here you find out it's actually 3.5 years, because it's going to picture something, the tribulation, a half of the tribulation. Now, he put two examples in there because there are two 3.5 year periods of the tribulation, and they each picture something different. Let's see it. Elijah pictures the first half of the picture, and he's actually going to be there. Moses and Elijah. He's one of the witnesses. He'll picture that first half, and he'll be raptured out, just as the tribulation saints who are looking for Christ, like we saw in Matthew 25 and in Revelation 14. They'll be pictured as that example he's using of Elijah. The other example he gave us was of Job. Job is different. He's not raptured out. Job pictures the Jews that endure to the end and receive the kingdom. Job received double after enduring the tribulation that fell on him, never having to leave his property. He stayed right there and endured to the end and got double. And that's what somebody's going to do. That's all those verses that say endure to the end. Somebody's going to have to. That's what Job is going to picture. Let's find some more of them. Luke 17. The thing about Job is he's got 42 chapters, which is 42 months, which is 42 years. There's a lot of stuff. Job is a great picture of the Great Tribulation. Luke 17, verse 28. Likewise also, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Okay, I say that's a picture of the mid-trib rapture. Lot gets taken out before the bad stuff comes down. And so somebody's going to endure 10 days of tribulation, and then they're getting out. And then the rest of them's got to go right on through it. Look at another example he gives us in verse 26. And as it was in the days of Noe, that's Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. Okay, so this is Noah. Noah's a different situation than Lot. Lot got yanked out before the bad stuff fell. Not Noah. Noah went right through it. He endured the whole flood that God was sending on this earth. Now, he was protected in an ark. Just as somebody in the tribulation, I say the Jews, are going to run to Petra and be protected for 3.5 years, but they'll stay here and endure to the end. Okay, so that's your pre and your post, and you can work on it and mull on it and correct it and tell me how to do it. Okay, so that's two of them. The next thing that's important is Armageddon. That's the day of the Lord. And this is a known day. He gives you how to figure up the numbers. Daniel 12, verse 12. Daniel 12, verse 12. There are Jews that will see the Antichrist go into the temple and declare himself God, and then they can get their calendar out because he gives you over and over the numbers to count. Daniel 12, 12. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days. So he's actually given them a time frame to start counting to. I'm not going to get into it. There's 2 numbering systems that are found in Daniel. And if you want a mind-boggling teaser, figure those out. And then tell me how you did it. Revelation 12. Revelation 12, verse 6. Revelation 12, 6. And the woman, this is typifying Israel as the nation. The woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that's Petra, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Get the calendar out, start marking it off. That's all the time you got left, and then the Advent comes. Daniel 9:27, he says this, and he shall confirm the covenant, that's the Antichrist will, with many for 1 week, that's 7 years. And in the midst of the week, 3.5 years down the road, he shall cause the sacrifice of oblation to cease. That is, they've been sacrificing in the temple, and he's going to say no more. And for the overspread of abomination he shall make it desolate, even unto the consumption. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Matthew 24:13. Matthew 24:13. A Jew that's been studying his Bible in the tribulation and missed it, he'll realize he missed it. I know it. He'll realize he missed it when the church goes out at the midpoint. Now, by church, I don't mean church age. I mean the churches that will be in the tribulation doing different things than we do. And then he'll get his calendar out when he sees the Antichrist sit down and know how long he's got to endure until the end comes. Matthew 24:13. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So there's the hope for the Jew that missed it the first time around. Mark 13:13, basically the same thing. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. That's not to go to heaven, that's to stay on earth. The Jew's not looking for an opportunity to get to heaven. This is going to be his heaven. He wants millennial reign of Christ on earth, and the Jew to be on the top of the heap, just as it was promised all the way back in the beginning of the Bible. Let's cover this quickly. Exodus 19:11. Exodus 19:11. I'm starting with the picture, but this is pictorial, so take it or leave it. You figure out what to do with it. I think I've got it right. Of course I would. I wouldn't tell you something that I thought was wrong. Exodus 19:11. And be ready against the 3rd day. For the 3rd day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. Now that's a fact, and he did do that. But he's going to do it again because we know how to calculate days. There's a way the Bible says to calculate heavenly days or spiritual days. The 3rd day is going to point to 3 days after Israel rejected their Messiah. I know they were rejecting him the whole time, but it is finally cemented in Acts chapter 7. In Acts chapter 7, they reject Stephen's opportunity he's giving them to accept the Messiah, even though he was gone. His whole sermon is, accept him. And when the Sanhedrin says, no, we're not going to do it, then that age closes and a new one begins. So 3 days, that'll be 3,000 years. Hosea 5. Hosea 5, verse 15. Now, you recognize this as God saying this, but imagine Jesus saying it, and you'll put it right in the right place. I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. In their affliction, 7 years of it, they will seek me early. Chapter 6, verse 1. Come and let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn, I guess so, and he will heal us. He hath smitten, and he will bind us up. There's coming a day he will. Chapter 6, verse 2. After 2 days, after 2,000 years. How long's it been? It's been 2 days, 2,000 years, almost. Now, people have said this, and I think dated it wrong. The 2,000 years, I don't believe, begins at the cross, nor do I believe it began with his birth. I believe it began with Stephen in Acts 7. So you calculate 2,000 years from there. Nobody can do that because we don't understand the calendar anymore. It's been changed so many times. I mean, you can get close and you can have your own guess, but I don't think anybody's going to hit it. Okay? I mean, you just try the best you can. So 2,000 years from Stephen's stoning. Let's assume the calendar is correct. That would put it at, Jesus died at year 34, 33 and a half. So 33, 34. Then Stephen is 1 year after. That is the parable of the fig tree. Is it the fig tree? Yeah, where he says, chop it down, dung around. No, don't chop it down, dung around it, and give it 1 more year. If it bears fruit, fine. If not, chop it down. Okay, that's the nation of Israel. And that's exactly what he did. He gave them 1 more year with the opportunity of both Peter's message in chapter 2 of Acts and then Stephen's in chapter 7. And when they officially, all of the ruling party of Israel reject him, then they're cut off. And so 2,000 years from that date would, let's say, 37 approximately. So 37 plus 2,000 would be 2,037. That puts you at Armageddon. Okay, subtract 7 years, and that should be where our rapture is. Now, I don't know. Y'all figure it out, play with it, and do your own math. Now, he says you won't know the day or the hour. Now, I'm sorry, that doesn't refer to the rapture of the church. When he's saying the day or the hour, it's in reference to this right here, in the tribulation. Paul says in 2 Thessalonians that you yourselves know well the day or the hour. So he says the times you're not ignorant of, and I don't have to tell you about it. So we should do some math and be working on it. Okay, Hosea 6 verse 2, he said, after 2 days will he revive us in the 3rd day. So that would be in the millennium. He will raise us up and we shall live in his sight. Yep, because he'll be on earth and they'll be in his sight. Okay, that's Armageddon, the day of the Lord. I say the day of the Lord is not a period of 7 years. It's 1 day, and it's probably a matter of hours, but it's 1 day. The only time you could say it's not 1 day is if you had Bible reason to do that. What else does he call 1 day? 1 day is also called 2 Peter 3 verse 10. 1 day is also called 1,000 years. Some people believe in what's called a post-millennial rapture. And here's, I don't know if they see this or not. They've got all kinds of things messed up. But this is where they could have put it had they had a brain. 2 Peter 3, verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with a fervent heat. And the earth also, and the works that are therein, shall be burnt up. That ends the millennium. That's how the millennium ends. It gets burnt up. And he creates new heaven and new earth. In the millennium, he didn't create a new heaven and a new earth. We're looking for that, and you notice what he called it? The beginning of the verse, verse 10. The day of the Lord. Single day. But here it can be 1,000 years. Look at verse 8. But, beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. So there he's telling you plainly from the context. When I'm saying day of the Lord this time, I'm talking about the millennium as one day, because it is literally 1,000 years. Ezekiel, see how it ends. Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel 38, verse 2. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them. Now, this is a wild thing right here. He's telling Ezekiel to prophesy against something that's not going to happen for 3,000 years. This is crazy. In the millennium, you cannot prophesy. In the millennium, if your son or daughter prophesies, you're to thrust them through with a spear, because they're there to deceive. Anything God wants to say, he's right there in person, and he says. So this prophecy is going to stretch a long, long time. Now, the reason it can be done like this is because this Gog, Magog, Tubal, and Meshech, all that, those are going to be spiritual, I think, principalities. Let's find it in the Bible, Revelation 20. You'll find people who will tell you that Gog and Magog happen all kinds of places. Right now, lately, I've been seeing a lot of people tell you that Gog and Magog happen either before the tribulation, or they're a war that happens in the tribulation before Armageddon. The Bible's clear about where it happens. Revelation 20, verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, okay, that's millennium, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went upon the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire, not hell, of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. The end. So that's how it ends up. It's almost like it's continual circles that keep happening. Millennium ends almost the way the tribulation ended, with Armageddon. But now it's called Gog and Magog. But that's called the day of the Lord also, but there you can have biblical reason for calling it the day of the Lord, because in the context he says 1,000 years equals one day. I'm going to show this to you in one other place. The Bible tells you this. People will say, you'll hear this, don't base a doctrine on one verse. Okay, let's get two. Psalms 90, verse 4. Psalms 90, verse 4. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. So there he said it again. Now that's probably where Peter learned it from, because David was giving you something. Now David is called a prophet in the book of Acts. So David is prophetic, and there he's telling you about the 1,000 year being considered one day. Okay, now any questions, comments? That's a whole lot right there. Okay? Work on it, mull it over, see what you come up with.